Hello guys, welcome back to the podcast. I am Matt and I'm feeling very positive today because in today's episode we're going to be learning how to describe positive things in English. So positive adjectives, positive idioms, positive phrases. It's a very positive episode today. We're starting to talk about my journey traveling around Sri Lanka, which is a country that I absolutely fell in love with. It's one of my favorite countries that I've ever been to. And to be honest, I could talk about Sri Lanka for hours and hours and hours. But I'm not going to do that because you might get bored. So I'm planning to break the Sri Lanka journey down into 3 episodes. We did a circular route around Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is an island and we traveled around it in a circle. And I'm going to break the episodes about Sri Lanka into the south of Sri Lanka, safari and wildlife in Sri Lanka, and then the central highlands of Sri Lanka. So I'm planning to do 3 episodes and today is the first one. So in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about my travels along the south coast of this country, visiting beaches, looking at wildlife, and generally falling in love with the country and its people. As I mentioned at the start then, as I'm telling the story of my travels around the south of Sri Lanka, I'm going to be using a lot of very positive language in English. We're looking at positive adjectives, positive idioms, positive phrases. So we're going to be describing positive feelings, positive people, and positive things as well. It's a really positive episode. I hope you enjoy it, guys. Let's get into it. So we started our journey backpacking around Sri Lanka from the capital city, Colombo. Now, many travelers to Sri Lanka skip Colombo, so it's quite difficult to find information about it online. But I actually loved the place. I thought it was really interesting. I'm going to talk more about Colombo when we talk about the highlands and the north of Sri Lanka. We're focusing on the south today, but don't skip it if you do visit Sri Lanka. Anyway, we started our journey here and we took a train to Galle, which is a town down the southwest coast of Sri Lanka. So this was our first experience taking the train in Sri Lanka, and I was really excited to do it. There are some iconic train journeys that you can take in Sri Lanka. This is one of the ones that is not so well known, but it's still an amazing trip, unbelievable views. So we entered the train station in Colombo and I was loving every minute of it. I was loving every minute. It was very, very old school. The train station looked like a British train station from the 1940s. A couple of nice words and phrases there, guys. Old school, it's a nice way of saying old-fashioned. Okay, and I said I was loving every minute of it. There's a really nice phrase. If you're really enjoying something, you can say I am or I was loving every minute of it. So in the train station, I was loving every minute of this journey. As this was our first time taking the train in Sri Lanka, we were a little bit confused. It was quite chaotic. Right? So chaotic means quite crazy. I think we bought tickets for second class, but we got in the wrong cabin. We actually got in the third class cabin. This was not a bad thing because I loved it. It was so fun. So in the third class cabin, you are not given a seat. You just sit anywhere. So it's first come, first served with the seats. That means whoever gets there first can take the seat. And this train was very busy. There were so many people in this cabin. We had no chance of getting a seat. So we were standing and we were packed like sardines into this train cabin. There's another really nice idiom, guys, to be packed like sardines. It means to be squeezed in, a lot of people squeezed into a small space. A sardine is a fish, and it's usually sold in a small tin. So a lot of sardines will be packed into a small tin. So the idiom to be packed like sardines, it means a lot of people squeezed into one space. So on this train cabin, we were packed like sardines. I think we were the only travelers. Everybody else was a local person. Anyway, the train pulled out of Colombo, and after a short time, some old guys who were sitting near us, they offered Michelle, my girlfriend, a seat with them so she could sit down a little bit. The seats were not individual seats. It was like a long bench. So you have a lot of people squeezed onto one bench. And this was our first real experience of how unbelievably kind and welcoming the Sri Lankan people were. These old guys let Michelle sit with them. It was quite a funny scene, actually. I was standing there watching, and there's just Michelle sitting in the middle of this group of old Sri Lankan men who were all talking together. It was really, really cool, really nice to see. And actually, we realized that people would share the seats very often. So a little bit later, another of those men offered to give me the seats, and he swapped with me. And we sat down with these old guys, and we were chatting to them for a really long time. They were telling us where they were going, telling us about their hometown and their life, and yeah, really nice experience. Anyway, the main attraction of the train journey from Colombo to Galle is one section of the track which goes right alongside the sea. It's almost like you're going above the sea. So the track kind of goes along a beach, but it's literally right next to the sea. So as you look out of the window, it feels like you're going over the sea. It's absolutely dreamlike, really incredible experience. The word dreamlike, as you can guess, it means it feels like a dream. It feels like it's not real. So I was in this train going right along the ocean. It was dreamlike. It felt like it was something from a dream. And of course, on the trains in Sri Lanka, you can open the windows, you can even open the doors as well. It's quite hot. There is no air conditioning. There are some fans on the roof to keep people cool. But to cool down, the local people will open the door and they will maybe sit in the doorway with their legs outside of the train. I'm going to talk more about this in the next episode because we took a really long train journey at that point. But this was our first experience. You know, we were doing all of the pictures, getting outside the window, outside of the door, feeling the fresh air in your face. Just a really, really good first experience of train travel in Sri Lanka. Anyway, we arrived into Galle in the quite late afternoon. We checked into our hotel. We had a little walk around the town. Galle, if I remember rightly, is an old Dutch town. So I don't know the history here, unfortunately, but I imagine that long ago in history, Dutch people had a colony in this town, and they built some walls. They built a bit of a town there. There's a lighthouse as well. And there are a lot of little streets that you can walk around. It felt quite touristy. There were a lot of tourists there. So if something feels touristy, it means it feels like it's kind of created for tourists, or there are too many tourists. But we had a little walk along the beach, walked into the town a little bit, checked out a little square in the town where there was this huge banyan tree. If you've ever seen a banyan tree before, it has a lot of vines growing down from it. It's really hard to explain. Check out a picture of banyan tree. But there was a really cool banyan tree in this little square. And in that banyan tree, we saw our first monkeys of the trip. So for me, I absolutely love seeing wild monkeys because it makes me feel like I'm in a really exotic place. Of course, we don't have monkeys in the UK. So when I see monkeys just hanging out in the wild, I really feel like I'm kind of, you know, in a wild place, in the jungle kind of thing. So I feel like I'm in a really exotic place. Exotic is a great adjective. It means something that comes or feels like it's from very, very far away and usually very tropical. So I feel like I'm in an exotic place when I see monkeys. Very pleased to see them, and actually it became really normal to see wild monkeys in our time in Sri Lanka. They are everywhere, but this was our first experience with them. And we continued to walk around Gaul, and we saw one of the best sunsets I've ever seen in my life as the sun set slowly behind the ocean. That night we had quite an early night because the next day we had booked a trip to go whale watching. So the south of Sri Lanka, particularly the southwest, is a real hotspot for whale watching. A hotspot is another really nice word, guys. It means a very popular place or a very good place for doing something specific. So the southwest of Sri Lanka is a hotspot for seeing whales and dolphins in the ocean. And it's a big dream of mine to see wild whales. It's been on my bucket list for a very long time. And also for Michelle, her favorite animal is dolphins. So we were really hoping to see some dolphins as well. So the whale watching tour started very early. I think we were picked up at 5 a.m. from our hotel because we had to be taken from Gaul to another town along the coast called Mirissa, which is where the whale watching tours set off from. So we were picked up by a tuk-tuk driver. If you don't know what a tuk-tuk is, it's like a small vehicle. It's not a car, but it's not a motorbike. It has 3 wheels, and people can sit in the back as the driver drives around. And it's the most common form of transport and public transport in Sri Lanka. Tuk-tuks are everywhere. So the tuk-tuk picked us up at 5 a.m. and it was quite a long journey. I think about 1.5 hours to get to Mirissa, where the whale watching tour started. Now, the whale watching tour was done on a really big boat, so quite a lot of people went with us together, and we had some excellent guides. These guys were telling us about how the whale watching industry in Sri Lanka has become quite big, and not all of the companies treat the whales in a good way. You know, they want to please the tourists, they want to make the tourists happy. So the guides explained to us that a lot of the whale watching tours, if they see a whale, they will really chase it and try to get very, very close to it. They explained this is quite dangerous, it could hurt the whales. So if we saw a whale, we would be careful and we would try to observe it, so try to watch it from far away. I liked that. Of course, I wanted to see whales, but I didn't want to harm them or hurt them. And I liked that these guys clearly really cared about the whales. Yeah, so I really like the attitude of the guides. I highly recommend them. I can't remember the name of the company. I will find that later, and I'm going to put it into the description of this episode. If anyone is planning to go to Sri Lanka and wants to go whale watching, highly recommend those guys. They were excellent. Anyway, we headed out into the ocean to search for whales, and honestly, the trip, you are just going around the ocean trying to spot the back or the tail or maybe some water spraying up of a whale. And when you spot it, the boat will try to get close to it. So I was really excited, really nervous, thinking, I was looking everywhere, side to side, keeping my eye out for a whale. There's a great phrase, guys. To keep your eye out for something means to be looking for it, to make yourself ready to see it if it comes. So I was keeping my eye out for a whale. Michelle, on the other hand, was very, very seasick. So we were on the ocean maybe 1 hour, 2 hours only, and she already started to feel really bad. So she was struggling a little bit, but I was keeping my eye out for some whales. And the guides are real pros, real professionals. They kept spotting, a tiny piece of water coming up out of the ocean, and then they would tell everybody, look this way, look that way, look this way, look that way. And we would try to get a little bit closer to the whales. I saw a few pieces of water spraying up, but I didn't see the whale. They were too far away. But we had a lot of time. The whale watching tour was a full day. So we were on the boat all day, unfortunately for Michelle. The big highlight was at one moment we saw a huge pod of dolphins. A pod is the word that we use for a group of dolphins. Sometimes English can be crazy, right? And we have so many different words for different groups of animals. So a group of cows is a herd, a group of pigeons is a flock, a group of dolphins is a pod. So this pod of dolphins suddenly started jumping out all around the boats. There were loads of them. It was incredible, really cool. For Michelle, that was a dream come true, but she was struggling with the seasickness. But I was happy she saw those dolphins anyway. Really amazing. I was grinning from ear to ear when we saw the dolphins. And there's an excellent phrase, guys, grinning from ear to ear. To grin means to smile. And imagine grinning from one ear to the other ear. It means your smile is very, very big, very, very wide. So when I saw these dolphins jumping up around the boat, I was grinning from ear to ear. I was so happy to see that. But the whales were more difficult to see. We did see a lot of other tourist boats, and sometimes they would all rush together, coming very, very close to each other. And obviously they saw some kind of whale. But our boat didn't do that. We were going our own way, trying to find our own whale and staying away from it a little bit, which, as I said, I liked. Actually, I really enjoyed the boat trip, and I have to say I was having a whale of a time. Hey, having a whale of a time means to be having a fantastic time. You're really enjoying yourself. So I was having a whale of a time. I wanted to get that idiom into this episode, guys, because we were looking for whales and I was having a whale of a time, right? To be honest, it's not a really commonly used idiom anymore. It's one that everybody knows, but it's a little bit cliche. Like raining cats and dogs. Everybody knows that idiom, but we don't really use it in real life. So having a whale of a time, some people use it, but it's not the most common one in real life anymore. Yeah, I was having a whale of a time, a great time. I had seen the dolphins, but I really wanted to see a whale. And it finally happened. It did happen. But it wasn't a really close sight of a whale. We got quite close, and I could see its back coming out of the water and a little bit of its tail as well. We followed it for a short time, and I saw it many, many times coming up and down, up and down. I really, in my mind, I wanted to see a whale fly out of the water. That didn't happen, but I could still say that I saw a whale. I saw the back of this whale many, many times. So I was buzzing. I was absolutely buzzing. It was a dream for me, and I think I achieved it. So to be buzzing is a great adjective, guys. Very natural in British English. To be buzzing means to be really happy, to be really excited. So I achieved my dream. I saw a whale. I was buzzing. Okay, I was so happy. I was so excited. So to be buzzing. Anyway, it was a long day. It was a long day on the boat, and we were quite happy when the boat finally came back to the land. Michelle was particularly happy because she could finally get off the water. And we spent the rest of the afternoon walking around Mirissa, which is a really, really nice little beach town. In the south of Sri Lanka, surfing is very, very popular, and a lot of people head to Mirissa. It's a bit of a hippie kind of place. Okay, so it's very, very relaxed, very chilled out. You can go surfing, relax on the beach, you can drink some nice drinks. It's very relaxed, and it's a place I would 100% recommend going to if you visit the south of Sri Lanka. I don't regret, but if I went back to Sri Lanka, I would like to stay in Mirissa for a few days. I haven't even talked about the beach, guys. The beaches in the south of Sri Lanka are some of the most incredible beaches I've ever seen. So nice, like perfect ocean. The ocean is quite strong. It's not very calm, so it's not the best place for swimming, but the beaches are just tropical paradises. Tropical paradises. Those are two words we often find together, a common collocation in English, tropical paradise. So I think it explains itself, but a tropical paradise is a tropical place which is paradise. Okay, so it's just the perfect place to be in a tropical area. So we spent the afternoon in Mirissa and then headed back to Galle, and it was our final night in Galle. And the next day we were heading to our next destination, further along the coast, so past Mirissa and further east along the south coast of Sri Lanka. We were heading to a small town called Tangall. Okay, sounds very similar to Galle, but Tangall. And we had made good friends with our tuk-tuk driver. You know, the driver who took us from Galle to Mirissa for the whale watching. We were chatting to him a lot during the journey. We really liked this guy. He was so friendly, so nice, and very flexible as well. So we asked him if he could take us to Tangall the next day. So we booked his tuk-tuk again. And it was a long journey to Tangall, about 2.5 hours. Anyway, I was really starting to find that I loved the tuk-tuk journeys. So we set off the next day from Galle, and again, we spent all of this time chatting to the driver, getting to know him. He was telling us about his family. We actually stopped outside of his house, and his wife was walking past with his children, and he was like, "This is my wife." He introduced us to his wife. And incredibly, we looked inside his tuk-tuk and he had a huge picture of his two children inside the tuk-tuk. So this driver, what an amazing man. We loved him. He was incredibly friendly. And this makes me think of a couple of other ways that we could describe a friendly person in English. So often in English, we say that good characteristics or good personality comes from the heart, right? From the heart. So somebody who's very friendly is kind-hearted, okay, or good-hearted. I could say this tuk-tuk driver was a real kind-hearted man, okay, a really good-hearted man. He was so friendly and so kind, and we loved him. He was great. So he took us on this quite long journey, 2.5 hours, on to our next destination, Tangall. He even stopped in a small village on the way to show us a big statue, a big rock, which is quite important for the local Buddhist people, for their religious beliefs. So he did a little bit of tour guiding for us for free. I was actually really sad to say goodbye to him. He was such a nice guy. But we arrived in our next destination, Tangall, and we were staying at the best resort I have ever stayed in, and I probably will ever stay in. This was an experience that was just out of this world for me. It was an out of this world experience. There's a fantastic phrase, guys, out of this world. It means something that is so incredible, so amazing that it feels like it doesn't come from this world, from this planet. Okay? A really good phrase. Something is out of this world. It's unbelievable, amazing. You can't believe it. So in Tangol, in Sri Lanka, we stayed in a resort that was just out of this world. Unbelievable. I mentioned in a previous podcast episode that my girlfriend Michelle sometimes works with hotels. And because of that, we are lucky enough to stay in some incredible places sometimes. And this was another example of that. We were doing some work, some projects with the hotel resort in Tangol. So we were allowed to stay there. And the name of this resort is Amanuela. Amanuela. Aman is a big luxury hotel resort company, I think, and they have hotels and resorts all around the world. So Amanuela was the resort that we were staying in. Now, as we were coming to realize, the service from the staff in the hotel was just unbelievable. Sri Lankan people are some of the friendliest, the smiliest people I have ever met. And the staff in Amanuela were no different. Just such nice people. And they showed us to our room. And I have to say, when I walked into this room, I was blown away by it. I was blown away. And I've used this phrasal verb in previous podcast episodes, guys. To be blown away by something means you are shocked. You are stunned by something. So I walked into this room in Amanuela and I was blown away. I've never seen anything like it. Never mind, stayed in anything like it. We had our own pool. We had lots of fresh fruit, snacks. We had a really just modern looking room. It's hard to describe that the design of this room was just so beautiful. So the back wall and the front wall were just glass. So it was very open. We could see outside. And we had a very large balcony at the back. And as I walked onto this balcony, the view that I saw, I want to say out of this world again. The view was out of this world, okay? The view was of the beach below, and this view was jaw-dropping. It was a jaw-dropping view. Okay, there's an excellent word, jaw-dropping, okay? It means, again, that something is amazing, incredible, you can't believe it. We often use it with incredibly beautiful things. So something that is really beautiful is jaw-dropping. Okay? Your jaw is the part of your face below your mouth, I think. So your jaw can open and close your mouth. So imagine if you're completely surprised, completely amazed by something, your mouth will open very wide, right? Very big. Your jaw will drop. Your jaw will go down. Okay? So something that is jaw-dropping, it makes you stunned. It makes you amazed. It's so beautiful that you can't believe it. Okay? This view of the beach from our balcony was jaw-dropping. I couldn't believe it. And the view itself was this tropical beach. And as I mentioned before, just a tropical paradise. And the beach here was even better than the beach in Marissa. If you imagine in your head the perfect tropical beach, you've got white sand, you've got blue ocean, you've got a lot of palm trees. This beach was it. Okay, I don't think you can get any more perfect than this beach. And I had an incredible view of it from our hotel window. So I was feeling very, very lucky and a little bit out of place as well. I've never stayed anywhere like that before. So I was feeling like, okay, I don't really belong here. This is not my kind of place. But I was very lucky and yeah, and very, very happy to have stayed there. So we spent the afternoon relaxing in our pool and walking along the beach and enjoying the beach and the ocean as well. The ocean in Sri Lanka is incredibly blue, so nice, but it's not the best place for swimming. The waves are quite big and quite strong as well, which I found out. I was trying to, relax and swim in the ocean, but I had to keep fighting the waves. The waves are really strong. They want to pull you out. And that's why the south of Sri Lanka is so good for surfing, but not so good for swimming. It doesn't matter though. So we spent the afternoon on the beach and in the pool. And in the evening, we walked along the beach to a tiny little restaurant or cafe that was at the other end of the beach. And this place was right up my street. Okay. I love this kind of place. And that's another excellent phrase, guys. I didn't plan on teaching that one today. When something is right up your street, it means it's the perfect thing for you. It's something that you really enjoy specifically. Okay? Something might be right up your street, so it's perfect for you, but it's not right up another person's street. So when we use the phrase, it's right up my street, we mean it's perfect specifically for me. So this little restaurant on the beach in Tangol was right up my street because I love eating outside. I love eating local food that is cooked by hand. And this place, well, there was no building for this place. All of the chairs, all of the tables were on the beach. The guy who owned the restaurant was wearing shorts and no t-shirt, I think. He clearly kind of lived on the beach. And all of the fish that this restaurant served was caught by the owner's brother on that day. So fresh fish. And you could choose the fish you wanted to eat. Once again, guys, I was loving every moment of this. It's right up my street, perfect for me, out of this world experience. All of the idioms and phrases we've learned so far. And at this little place, I had the best meal of the holiday in Sri Lanka. One of the best meals I've ever had in my life. It was a red snapper. Red snapper is a type of fish which comes from the ocean. It was caught that day. It was grilled by the restaurant owner's mother with lots of vegetables and fresh rice. And we had the full fish between us, me and Michelle. I'm going to share some pictures of it on Instagram, although the pictures don't look nice because it was dark. But this dinner was one of the best I've ever had, sitting on the beach with my feet in the sand, enjoying this fresh fish from the ocean caught that day, fresh rice. Perfect. Just so, so good. And we relaxed in this little restaurant on the beach for some time. And we were realizing even more that Sri Lanka is a place that is full of nature, absolutely full of nature. It's everywhere. And for me, this is one of the best things about the country. So just sitting on this beach in the evening, we realized we were surrounded by hermit crabs. Hermit crabs. These are crabs that find an empty shell, an empty seashell, and they kind of go in this seashell and make it their home. So you can see these crabs walking around and they have a seashell on their back. And some of them were really big. I've never seen anything like that before. Really cool. We also saw fireflies as well. Fireflies. And a firefly is an insect or a fly that has like a light on its body. So it was dark at night and we could just see these little lights flying around. Yeah, perfect. Just so cool. For me, this is what travel is about. Getting yourself out into nature and experiencing real local food and local people. And I was absolutely falling in love with Sri Lanka already, as you can probably tell. And the next day, the nature experiences continued even further. We had a great breakfast at the Amanwala resort. We spent the day on the beach relaxing. And in the evening, the staff at the Amanwala resort organized a trip for us. So they took us to a lagoon, which was nearby. A lagoon is like a lake, okay, a big lake. Now, I didn't know what to expect from this. We planned to go and do a safari, so to go, real serious animal watching later in the holiday. So this lagoon trip, it was like a surprise extra. We didn't plan to do it, but the hotel organized it for us. So we said, okay, yeah, let's go and see what happens. But it was honestly beyond my wildest dreams. It was beyond my wildest dreams. And there's another phrase, guys, which is similar to out of this world. So something is beyond your wildest dreams. Imagine your wildest dreams are your craziest dreams, okay, your most ambitious dreams. And this was beyond those dreams. So even more than you could dream of, even more than you could imagine, okay. This trip to the lagoon was beyond my wildest dreams, something I couldn't even imagine or dream of. So we got to the lagoon and we were put onto, I'm going to call it a boat, but it was more like a platform, okay, just a small square of, I don't know, wood, let's say, which floated on the water. It had a table and a nice like sofa for us to sit. And we had a guide to take us onto the lake. This boat didn't have an engine, so the guide was pushing us along with a really long stick. And we had one of the staff from Amanuela come with us, and he was serving us snacks and drinks as we went around the lagoon. I was feeling like a king. I've never been treated like this before. The service in Sri Lanka is just unbelievable. But the big attraction of this lake was soon to come. So we started to move out across the lake, going along the tree line, and we were seeing some really cool birds. I'm not a huge bird fan. I like birds, but I don't know a lot about them. But the birds we were seeing were just, again, very exotic. So I saw some pelicans. I don't know if you know what a pelican is, but it's a big bird. Its mouth, its beak is really big, and it can store a lot of water in its beak, I think. Anyway, we saw pelicans, we saw other birds. I don't know what they were, but they were very exotic and made me feel like I was in a wildlife documentary. Just unbelievable. But the main attraction of this lagoon was the fruit bats. And as the sun started to set, these fruit bats came out in incredible numbers. And a fruit bat is bigger than a normal bat. It's absolutely massive. If you've ever seen these bats before, they're like small dogs. Okay, this was the first time I'd seen them in my life, and I was, again, blown away by the size of these things. They're like flying dogs. And the number of these fruit bats flying around this lake was just incredible. I couldn't believe it. There were thousands of them flying around. And what an unbelievable sight that was. Again, I'm going to use that phrase. I couldn't imagine anything like this, even in my wildest dreams. It was amazing to see. Not only were there fruit bats flying around, we also saw more monkeys in the trees, some big lizard things, turtles, and of course, loads of unbelievable birds. I was getting a real taste of the nature experience in Sri Lanka. And again, I was loving every minute of it. So we came back to the shore. We were taken back to the Amanuela resort to spend one more night in this unbelievable hotel. And actually, we really didn't want to leave there. It was an experience that neither of us had ever had before and probably will never have again. It was just an unbelievable resort, the most beautiful place I've ever stayed. And like I say, I feel very lucky to have stayed there. But that was the end of our travels across the south of Sri Lanka, we didn't have a lot of time because there were many, many other things that we planned to do on our trip. And I wish we had a little bit more time actually, because there are some incredible little towns to visit. If you love your beach holiday, your surfing, relaxing on the beach, south of Sri Lanka is up there as one of the best in the world, I think. You've got Galle, which we visited, and Mirissa, which I mentioned. But there are other places which we passed through but didn't have time to stay in, such as Unawatuna and Weligama, and of course Tangol, where we stayed at the end. So the south of Sri Lanka was a true tropical paradise, a beach paradise. I would love to go back there, but we had more adventures to come as we slowly moved inland and headed into the central part of the country. And we're going to talk about the central and the highlands of Sri Lanka in the next episode, because coming up next week, we're going to be talking about safari in Sri Lanka, which was, again, an out of this world experience. Okay, guys, a lot of really nice positive phrases in today's episode. I'm sure you can feel that I really fell in love with Sri Lanka. It has a special place in my heart now as one of my favorite countries in the world that I've ever been to. So lots of really nice positive adjectives, positive idioms, and positive phrases today. And of course, as always, if you're still unsure about any of the meanings of those or how to use them, get in touch with me. On Instagram is a good way. I'm active on Instagram. Feel free to ask me a question. I'm always willing to help and to reply to any messages I get. But thank you very much for listening. Quite a long one today, I think. I enjoy speaking about Sri Lanka a lot, and I could do it for a long time. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great week. See you next time.